Okay, so this is the third section in chapter 2. It's on batteries. Batteries are a main voltage source for many things. We talked about voltage sources in the last section, which is how current kind of runs through a machine or an appliance, whatever needs a voltage source. And a voltage source a lot of times is a battery. The first battery was made kind of almost on accident by this guy named Galvani, Luigi Galvani. He had some metal and some he had some metal there, and then he had some an acid, which is what you need for that. So you need some metal, a couple different types of metal, and you need an acid of some sort. And so he was basically studying anatomy. He was actually talking about the body structure of a frog, and he used a brass hook to hold the leg muscle in place, but then he saw that the frog's leg twitched. And so he wondered what that was all about. He called it animal electricity, but then he recognized later on that that's probably not what that was, that there was not the animal does not have electricity in it. He realized he treated something completely different than that, something that created energy, or created electricity. And so from there, there's a lot of different research that went on. In fact, this guy named Alessandro Volta was the one who built the first battery, and his was made from these layers of zinc and salt water and silver. So a couple different metals, like I mentioned, and then of course you need to have basically an electrochemical in there. In this case, it happens to be paper soaked in salt water, but you can use lemon juice or lime juice or vinegar. All of those are good ones as well if you're making your own battery. So this is chemical energy that's stored in a chemical compound. And Alessandro Volta, like I mentioned, he built the first battery by studying those chemical reactions that took place and caused electricity to happen because of the acid and the two metals that were involved with the battery. All right, so electrochemical cell is kind of another name for a battery. And usually we call this a wet battery, but batteries that actually have a fluid in them, which are a lot more dangerous than the dry cell batteries that we buy and put into our regular appliances. But electrochemical cell is a device that transforms that chemical energy into electric energy. So it's taking a chemical, in this case, the one that's in the picture here, sulfuric acid. It's using a couple metals, it's converting that, and we got a current going through it. So you have to have the whole group of stuff in order for this to happen, but it's a chemical reaction that takes place that causes an electric current to flow. And the things that make it up are these things called electrodes. You have to have a terminal, and you have to have a chemical. In this case, it's the sulfuric acid. So here we've got a copper electrode and a zinc electrode, so two different metals. They have a terminal at the top here, which is where the wires are connected. And then there's sulfuric acid. You'll probably notice this about before, but batteries, you always have a positive and a negative end of your batteries. Same thing here. Those are basically just the two ends. You have to have one of each if you want to have a battery. Okay, so a little bit more about the electrochemical cell. As I mentioned, you have to have an electrolyte. Electrolyte right here is that dilute sulfuric acid in this case. So it conducts the electric current, and it conducts that current inside of it, and it submerges the electrodes, making a complete circuit here, basically. And so inside here, that's the chemical reactions taking place in the sulfuric acid as well. So the chemical reaction between the electrodes causing the opposite charges and that go to opposite terminals. So we basically create charges. They go out from the positive and into the negative. Just like we looked at those charges before, the charges come out from positive, they go into negative. That's what happens. So the charges start here at the positive, and they go around and come into the negative, and we have a complete flow of charges through the battery here, and some charges are going through here as well, so we have a complete circuit in this case. Okay, so like I mentioned before, two different types of batteries. Batteries are another name for electrochemical cells. We have the wet cell batteries and the dry cell batteries. Wet cell batteries, if you've ever worked with or seen a car battery, that's an example of a wet cell battery. And a wet cell battery, it's just like you think. There is a wet or a fluid electrolyte inside of it. Whereas in a dry cell battery, there's just a paste. It's an electrolyte paste, so it's dry. It isn't something that can spill on you. If you've ever seen an old battery, a lot of times they'll start to break down over time, and you'll see maybe this blue or green stuff that comes out of them, and that's going to be your electrochemical. That's going to be your electrolyte paste that comes out of those eventually if they last. If they're in in an appliance too long and they're not used, they start to break down, and that's what you might see. Or maybe they're sitting in your drawer too long and they start to break down. That's what's going to happen. But then again, you have a couple different electrodes. Carbon and zinc are going to be found in your batteries, your dry cell batteries there. You've got a positive and negative terminal. You've got your paste here, your electrolyte, which again have all these things together. You have yourself a battery that can cause charges to flow in, electric charges to flow. In an appliance, whatever you're using it for, whereas a wet cell here, we have a lead and another, this is lead oxide here. So we've got positive and negative terminals, and we've got, usually there's a it's kind of like sulfuric acid or something that's a little stronger, the acid itself. And these, which is why you don't want to like mess around with a car battery, and maybe break it open, because that can be pretty dangerous because there is an actual wet, acid in there that can cause harm and can cause injury and stuff. So like I was saying, the battery is a combination of two or more electrochemical cells in a series. Now, that's where I wanted to point out here. If you put the batteries that you get in packages, you might get 4 or 5 in a package, or maybe just 2 in a package, depending on what kind of package you get. Those are each what we call electrochemical cells. We call them batteries, but batteries are basically all of them put together in whatever it is you're using them. So let's say that your remote for your Wii or your Xbox or whatever takes 2 AA batteries. Well, those are actually 2 AA electrochemical cells. You put them together in your remote, and you have a battery. So it's all electrochemical cells put together create the battery. So each one of those things is not a battery itself. Just putting them together, and as many as you need in your appliance, creates the whole battery. So if you only need one, then you've got a battery. If you need more than one, those are electrochemical cells that come together to form a battery. And this is the end of the section 3 in chapter 2. Again, there's going to be homework for this, and there is, you can print it off, or you can write on a separate sheet of paper or pick it up from school. All those things are possible. You can hand them in that way as well back at school, or you can take a picture and hand it in that way. Several different ways to do that. But there you go. Enjoy!